My name is Samantha, and I just turned 32 last month. Tonight was supposed to be special, our fifth wedding anniversary. Blake promised something memorable, even though he was on a business trip. We decided to celebrate at my parents' house while waiting for his return. When he suddenly showed up at the door and asked about the jewelry he sent me, my heart stopped. I looked around confused and said, "What jewelry?" His smile vanished as he turned to my family and said, "Where is it?" If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me for what happened next. I met Blake 7 years ago at a summer music festival in Nashville. I wasn't planning to go that weekend, but my college roommate had an extra ticket and insisted I needed to get out more. I had just finished my master's degree in education and was preparing for job interviews, so a weekend of fun seemed like the perfect stress reliever. Blake was standing near the main stage, tall and confident in a way that immediately caught my attention. He had this magnetic smile that made the crowded festival feel like an intimate gathering. When our eyes met across that sea of people, something just clicked. I'm not usually the type to approach strangers, but something about him pulled me forward. "You look like you're enjoying the music," I said immediately, regretting such a basic opener. He laughed, not mockingly, but warmly. "I am now," he replied. His voice had this rich, deep quality that vibrated through me. We spent the entire evening talking, barely noticing the bands we'd paid to see. Blake worked in international finance, a world completely different from my middle-class upbringing in suburban Michigan. His stories about business trips to London, Tokyo, and Dubai painted pictures of a life I'd only seen in movies. While I came from a family of teachers and social workers who valued stability and community, Blake chased opportunities and excitement across continents. Our connection was immediate and intense. Within a month, we were practically living together. My friends called it a whirlwind romance, but I was completely swept away. Every moment with Blake felt like stepping into a brighter, more vibrant world. He took me to restaurants where dinner cost more than my monthly rent, surprised me with weekend getaways to coastal bed and breakfasts, and introduced me to a lifestyle I never imagined for myself. My family, especially my parents, were cautious from the beginning. Dad would ask pointed questions about Blake's job, trying to understand exactly what an international finance consultant actually did. Mom would smile politely whenever Blake spoke about his travels, but would later question me about the stability of his career. "He seems nice, Samantha," she said, after meeting him for the third time. "But do you really know him? He's gone more than he's here." My younger sister Ashley was even more direct. "His watch costs more than Dad's car. Where's that money really coming from?" I dismissed their concerns as old-fashioned thinking. They didn't understand the modern business world, I told myself. They were stuck in their small-town mindset, while Blake was a citizen of the world. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to those early warning signs. But love has a way of blurring red flags into romantic decorations. Blake proposed after just 1 year together during a surprise trip to Santorini. The ring was stunning, a diamond that caught every ray of the Mediterranean sun. When I called my parents with the news, their congratulations felt forced. Dad asked if we could have a longer engagement, just to be sure, while Mom wondered aloud if I was ready for such a commitment. Despite their reservations, we married in a lavish ceremony that Blake insisted on paying for entirely. My parents seemed uncomfortable with the extravagance, but I was too enchanted by my fairy tale wedding to notice the tension simmering underneath the surface. Our first year of marriage was everything I dreamed of. We bought a beautiful condo in the city, traveled whenever possible, and enjoyed building our life together. Blake's business trips increased, but they rarely lasted more than a few days, and he always returned with thoughtful gifts and exciting stories. It was during our second year that things began to shift. Blake's trips grew longer and more frequent. 2-day business meetings in Chicago became week-long conferences in Singapore. Quick trips to New York stretched into 10-day stays with vague explanations about client meetings running long. Our relationship with my family became increasingly strained. Blake would find excuses to miss Sunday dinners, family birthdays, and holiday gatherings. When he did attend, he spent most of the time on his phone, stepping outside for important calls that couldn't wait. "It's just the nature of global finance," he would explain whenever I expressed disappointment. "The markets don't care about weekends or holidays." I defended him to my family, insisting that his dedication to his career was admirable, not concerning. I believed every explanation, every late-night call, every last-minute cancellation. After all, the lifestyle we enjoyed required sacrifice. And wasn't that what marriage was about? Supporting your partner's dreams even when it was difficult? Little did I know that I was constructing elaborate justifications for behavior that would eventually shatter the foundation of everything I believed about our relationship. By our third anniversary, Blake was traveling so much that we began to feel like long-distance roommates rather than husband and wife. He would be home for 3 or 4 days before jetting off again for another week or two. Our conversations became perfunctory, revolving around household logistics and schedule coordination rather than genuine connection. During one particularly lonely stretch when Blake was in Hong Kong for 2 weeks, I started spending more time with my family again. The distance that had grown between us began to shrink as I remembered how comforting it felt to be around people who had known me my entire life. Ashley had just gone through a breakup and moved back home temporarily, so we spent many evenings sitting on our parents' back porch, drinking wine and catching up. It was during one of these nights that she first voiced what would become a recurring theme. "Have you ever wondered what Blake actually does on these trips?" she asked, swirling her glass thoughtfully. "He works, obviously," I responded defensively. "For 2 weeks straight? No breaks, no time to even FaceTime his wife properly?" My mother, who had been quietly listening from her rocking chair, added, "Men who want to be with their wives find a way to make it happen, sweetie." I bristled at their insinuations. "You've never liked him. You've never given him a chance." "We've given him plenty of chances," Dad interjected from the doorway. "He's the one who never shows up." I left early that night, angry that they couldn't understand the complexities of Blake's career. But their words planted a seed of doubt that I couldn't quite shake. The following month, while paying our credit card bill, I noticed several charges that seemed unusual. A $400 dinner at a restaurant in Seattle when Blake was supposedly in Boston. A jewelry purchase from a high-end boutique that I'd never received. Hotel charges that extended beyond the dates he told me he was traveling. When I confronted him, Blake had explanations ready. The Seattle dinner was a last-minute meeting with a West Coast client he hadn't mentioned. The jewelry was a surprise he was saving for a special occasion. The hotel dates were a mistake by the booking system. "Do you really think I'd be stupid enough to use our joint credit card if I was up to something?" he asked with a laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. I wanted to believe him. It was easier than the alternative. So I pushed aside my doubts and apologized for questioning him. My relationship with my family grew more complicated as their suspicions about Blake intensified. Ashley started sending me articles about signs of cheating and financial infidelity. Mom would call daily to check in, her voice laced with concern she tried to hide. Dad, usually so stoic, asked me point blank if I was truly happy. "You don't smile the way you used to, Samantha. Your mother and I just want you to be happy." "I am happy," I insisted, but even I could hear the hollowness in my voice. Blake, for his part, became increasingly irritated by my family's influence. He suggested we move further from them, perhaps to another state where his firm had an office. When I resisted, he accused me of choosing them over him. "They're poisoning you against me. They've never thought I was good enough for their daughter, and now they're trying to drive us apart." I felt torn between the two sides of my life, the glamorous, exciting world Blake had introduced me to, and the stable, loving foundation my family represented. Both claimed to want what was best for me, but their visions of that future couldn't have been more different. As our 5th anniversary approached, I found myself taking stock of our marriage more critically than ever before. The expensive gifts and luxurious lifestyle that had once seemed so romantic now felt like compensation for Blake's absence. The exciting spontaneity I'd once admired now looked more like unpredictability and unreliability. Still, I wasn't ready to give up on us. I believed that relationships required work, and I was willing to put in the effort. I suggested marriage counseling, which Blake reluctantly agreed to but never found time to actually attend. I proposed more weekend getaways, just the two of us, but work emergencies invariably arose. I was slowly beginning to realize that I was the only one trying to save our marriage, but I wasn't yet ready to admit what that meant. 3 weeks before our anniversary, Blake and I were having breakfast together during one of his rare stretches at home. I had been dropping hints about our upcoming milestone for days, hoping he was planning something special. "So, I was thinking about our anniversary," I began, trying to sound casual. "Maybe we could go back to that bed and breakfast in Vermont where we spent our first weekend together." Blake looked up from his phone, a flicker of panic crossing his face before settling into an apologetic smile. "About that, I've been meaning to talk to you. Thompson assigned me to the Singapore merger. The meetings are scheduled right over our anniversary week." My heart sunk as I processed his words. "Can't someone else handle it? It's our 5th anniversary, Blake." "You know that's not how it works," he replied, reaching for my hand across the table. "This deal could mean a huge promotion. I tried to get out of it, but Thompson specifically requested me." I pulled my hand away, anger bubbling up. "You always say that. Every holiday, every special occasion, there's always some critical meeting that only you can handle." "That's because I'm good at my job," he snapped, then immediately softened. "Look, I know it's disappointing. It's disappointing for me too, but I promise I'll make it up to you." "How? With another expensive gift I'll open alone? Another apologetic phone call from a hotel room across the world?" His expression hardened, then abruptly shifted to something gentler, more calculated. "I have something special planned, something that will show you exactly how much you mean to me. It won't be the same as being together, but it will be memorable. Trust me." Despite years of similar promises, I felt myself softening. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe that our marriage wasn't just a convenient arrangement for when his work schedule permitted. "I'll be back as soon as I possibly can, and I'll send you something that will take your breath away, something worthy of 5 amazing years with the most beautiful woman in the world." His words were perfect, as always. Blake had a gift for saying exactly what I needed to hear, for making me feel like I was being unreasonable for wanting more of his time and attention. As the days passed and our anniversary drew closer, Blake departed for Singapore with another round of promises. I threw myself into work at the elementary school where I taught, trying not to dwell on spending another special occasion alone. 3 days before our anniversary, my mother called with an invitation. "Your father and I thought you might like to have dinner with us on Friday since Blake's away. Ashley will be here too. Nothing fancy, just family." I hesitated, sensing this might be another opportunity for them to express their concerns about my marriage. But the alternative was sitting alone in our empty condo, scrolling through photos of happier times. "That sounds nice, Mom. Thanks. We just want you to know you're not alone, sweetie, no matter what," she said, her voice gentle. The day of our anniversary arrived with a flurry of text messages and social media notifications from friends and family. Blake called briefly from Singapore, the connection spotty and his voice distant. "Happy anniversary, beautiful," he said, the background noise nearly drowning him out. "Did you get my surprise yet?" "No, nothing's arrived," I replied, trying to hide my disappointment. That's strange. The delivery was confirmed for this morning." "Well, I'm sure it will arrive soon. It's something really special, Samantha. I can't wait for you to see it." We spoke for a few more minutes before he rushed off to another meeting. I spent the rest of the day checking our mailbox and front desk for deliveries, but nothing came. As evening approached, I dressed for dinner at my parents' house, trying to summon some enthusiasm. I chose a simple blue dress that Blake had always liked, applied minimal makeup to hide the shadows under my eyes, and drove the familiar route to my childhood home. The house looked the same as always, a comfortable two-story colonial with a well-tended garden and the same porch swing where I'd spent countless teenage hours dreaming of my future. As I parked in the driveway, I felt a wave of nostalgia for the simpler life I'd once known. Inside, my mother was putting the finishing touches on dinner while my father poured wine in the dining room. Ashley arrived moments after I did, giving me a tight hug that lasted a beat too long. "Happy anniversary, sis," she said, pulling back to study my face. "How are you really doing?" "I'm fine," I replied, automatically. "Just another day, really." The look that passed between Ashley and my mother didn't escape my notice, but I chose to ignore it. I wasn't in the mood for another dissection of my marriage. Throughout dinner preparation, I kept checking my phone both from messages from Blake and notifications about a delivery. Nothing came. I tried to focus on the conversation around me, but my mind kept wandering to what the mysterious anniversary gift might be and why it hadn't arrived as promised. Little did I know that the answer to those questions would arrive soon, along with the truth that would change everything forever. Dinner was a strained affair from the beginning. My mother had prepared all my favorite foods, a gesture that felt simultaneously loving and pitying. The table was set with her best china and candles, creating an atmosphere that seemed too formal for a casual family dinner. "This looks amazing, Mom," I said, taking my seat at the table. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's not every day we celebrate a 5th wedding anniversary," she replied, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Dad poured wine for everyone, his movements deliberate and careful. "To Samantha," he said, raising his glass and paused, clearly searching for something positive to say about Blake. "And to better days ahead." Ashley's eyes darted to mine, gauging my reaction to our father's ambiguous toast. I pretended not to notice the implication and took a long sip of wine. As we began eating, the conversation stayed safely on neutral topics. Ashley's new job, Dad's garden, a neighbor's recent renovation project. Yet beneath the mundane discussion, I sensed an undercurrent of tension. My mother and sister exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Dad seemed preoccupied, refilling his wine glass more frequently than usual. "Is everything okay?" I finally asked during a lull in conversation. "You're all acting strange." "Everything's fine, sweetie," Mom said quickly. Too quickly. "We're just concerned about you," Ashley added, ignoring our mother's warning look. "Today can't be easy." "It's just an anniversary," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. "Blake and I will celebrate properly when he gets back." Another loaded glance between my mother and sister. "What?" I demanded. "What aren't you telling me?" Before anyone could answer, the doorbell rang. We all froze, 4 pairs of eyes fixed on the dining room entrance that led to the front hall. "Are you expecting someone?" I asked my parents. Dad shook his head, pushing back from the table. "I'll get it." We listened as he opened the door, followed by the low murmur of masculine voices. A moment later, Dad returned to the dining room with Blake following close behind. "Look who's here," Dad announced, his tone carefully neutral. Blake stood in the doorway, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit that showed no signs of international travel. He held a bouquet of roses and wore a brilliant smile that faltered slightly when he registered the tension in the room. "Surprise!" he exclaimed, his eyes fixed on me. I managed to wrap things up early and caught the first flight back, I couldn't miss our anniversary. I stood, genuinely shocked to see him. Blake, I thought you were in Singapore until next week. And miss our 5th anniversary? Never. He crossed the room and handed me the flowers, leaning in to kiss my cheek. Happy anniversary, beautiful. This is unexpected, I managed, acutely aware of my family's eyes on us. That's what surprises are all about, Blake replied smoothly. He turned to my parents with practiced charm. I hope it's okay that I crash your dinner. I wanted to surprise Samantha. Of course, my mother said stiffly. There's plenty of food. Blake took the empty seat beside me as Mom silently brought another place setting. The atmosphere had shifted from merely tense to something approaching hostility, though Blake seemed either oblivious or determined to ignore it. So, he said brightly, filling his plate, what did you think of the gift? Did it arrive on time? I looked at him blankly. What gift? Nothing came today. Blake's smile flickered. The jewelry I sent. The delivery was confirmed for this morning to your parents' address. I had it sent here since I knew you'd be having dinner with your family tonight. I shook my head slowly. I haven't received anything. Blake's expression changed, the warm smile replaced by something harder, more calculating. He turned his gaze to my parents, then to Ashley. That's strange. The courier confirmed delivery at 9:30 this morning. Someone signed for it. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I looked around at my family, suddenly understanding their strange behavior throughout the evening. Did something arrive from me today? No one answered immediately. My father stared down at his plate, while my mother busied herself rearranging the food on hers. Only Ashley met my questioning gaze, her expression a mixture of defiance and sympathy. Where is it? Blake asked, his voice deceptively calm, as he addressed my family directly. Where's the package I sent? The silence stretched, becoming unbearable. Finally, Ashley spoke. We intercepted it, she quietly said. We needed to talk to you first, Mom interjected, before you received it. Blake's face darkened. You had no right to take something addressed to my wife. We had every right, Ashley shot back, especially considering where it really came from. What are you talking about? I asked, looking between my sister and husband. Blake, what jewelry did you send? A diamond necklace, platinum setting with a 2-carat pendant to celebrate 5 years together. Sounds expensive, Ashley remarked coldly. Must have cost what, 10,000? 15? Blake's jaw tightened. Money isn't an issue when it comes to showing my wife how much I love her. Or how guilty you feel, Ashley muttered. Just loud enough for everyone to hear. Ashley, my mother cautioned. No, Mom, she needs to know. We agreed. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What grounds? What are you guys talking about? Blake, what jewelry did you send? A diamond necklace, platinum setting with a 2-carat pendant to celebrate 5 years. Sounds expensive, Ashley remarked coldly. Must have cost what, 10,000? 15? Blake's jaw tightened. Money isn't an issue when it comes to showing my wife how much I love her. Or how guilty you feel, Ashley muttered. Just loud enough for everyone to hear. Ashley, my mother cautioned. No, Mom, she needs to know. We agreed. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What is going on? Blake stood abruptly. I don't know what game your family is playing, Samantha, but I'm not going to sit here and be accused of something by people who have never accepted me. Sit down, my father said quietly, his first words since Blake's arrival.
Something in his tone made Blake hesitate. My daughter deserves the truth. I looked around the table, at these people who had been the constants in my life, then at the man I had chosen to build a future with. Someone was lying, and I needed to know who. The truth about what? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The moment hung suspended between us, 5 people caught in a web of secrets that was about to unravel completely.
Show her, Ashley, my father said, his voice heavy with resignation. Ashley hesitated, then pulled her phone from her pocket. She tapped the screen a few times before sliding it across the table to me. We hired someone, she said softly, a private investigator. You did what? I stared at her in disbelief before looking down at the phone. The screen showed a photo of Blake entering an upscale hotel in Chicago, his arm wrapped intimately around a woman I'd never seen before. The timestamp showed it was taken 3 weeks ago during what was supposedly a business trip to Boston. Keep scrolling, Ashley instructed gently. My fingers felt numb as I swiped through image after image. Blake and the same woman having dinner at an expensive restaurant, walking through a park, holding hands, kissing in a hotel lobby. Each photo was clearly dated, creating a timeline of deception that spanned months. This doesn't prove anything, Blake interjected, his voice tight with controlled anger. That's Madison, a colleague. We work closely on international accounts. These photos are being taken completely out of context. I looked up at him, searching his face for the truth. You told me you were in Boston that week. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his features before he regained his composure. I had meetings in both cities. I must have forgotten to mention the Chicago portion of the trip. And this? I swiped to a photo of Blake and the woman entering a jewelry store, the same one that had appeared on our credit card statement months ago. Research for your anniversary gift, he replied smoothly. Madison has excellent taste in jewelry. She was helping me choose something special for you. Ashley made a disgusted sound. Are you seriously going to stand there and lie to her face, even now? I'm not the one who hired someone to spy on her husband, Blake snapped. I'm not the one who intercepted a gift meant for my spouse. Your family has been trying to drive a wedge between us from day one, Samantha. Can't you see that? My mother, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. The investigator followed your husband to 3 different cities over the past 2 months, Samantha. He wasn't alone in any of them. Different women? I asked, feeling sick to my stomach. Mom nodded slowly. The Chicago woman, Madison, a brunette in San Francisco named Taylor, and someone in New York whose name we couldn't determine. I turned back to the phone, scrolling further to find images of Blake with different women in different locations. The evidence was overwhelming and devastating. The necklace, Ashley continued, is identical to one he bought for the woman in Chicago. We have photos of her wearing it at dinner with him last week in Singapore. The room spun around me. Singapore? Where Blake was supposedly on an urgent business trip that couldn't be rescheduled, not even for our anniversary? You weren't working, I whispered, meeting Blake's eyes. You were with her on our anniversary. For the first time, Blake looked genuinely panicked. Samantha, this isn't what it looks like. Your family is manipulating these images, taking things out of context to turn you against me. Where's the necklace? I asked my sister, ignoring Blake's protests. Ashley stood and left the room, returning moments later with a sleek black jewelry box. She placed it on the table in front of me. With trembling fingers, I opened it to reveal a stunning diamond pendant on a delicate platinum chain. Under different circumstances, it would have taken my breath away. Turn it over, Ashley instructed quietly. I lifted the pendant and flipped it over. Engraved on the back were the words, "To M, forever yours, B." M for Madison, Ashley explained unnecessarily. We checked the other side. No engraving for you. This was never meant for you, Samantha. He ordered it for her and had a duplicate made when he realized he needed to cover his tracks. I closed the jewelry box with a snap that seemed to echo in the silence of the dining room. When I finally looked up at Blake, it was like seeing a stranger wearing my husband's face. How long?
I asked simply. Blake ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, his confident facade crumbling. Samantha, please, let's talk about this privately. Your family has clearly made up their minds about me, but they don't know the pressures I'm under, the complexity of my work relationships. How long? I repeated, each word precise and hard. He stared at me for a long moment, calculating his options. Finally, his shoulders slumped slightly in defeat. Madison and I have been seeing each other for about 8 months, but it's not serious. It's just, she understands the demands of the job. She's there, available. And the others, I pressed, a strange calm settling over me despite the devastation inside. Blake's silence was answer enough. Was anything real? I asked, my voice barely audible. Was any part of our marriage genuine? Of course it was, he insisted, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled away before he could touch me. I love you, Samantha. These other women, they don't mean anything. They're distractions, mistakes. The pressure of my job, the loneliness of constant travel. I was weak, but it doesn't change how I feel about you. Stop lying to her, my father interjected, his voice trembling with barely contained anger. At least have the decency to tell her the truth now. He shot him a venomous look. This is between me and my wife. No, I said firmly, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. My family is part of this conversation because they cared enough to show me the truth when you wouldn't. I turned to Ashley. How did you know? What made you hire an investigator? Ashley exchanged glances with our parents before answering. Nicole from high school works at the bank now. She noticed some irregularities in Blake's accounts and reached out to me. Multiple apartments in different cities, all paid for in cash. Regular withdrawals that couldn't be tracked. Once we started looking, it wasn't hard to find the rest. I nodded slowly, pieces falling into place. The unexplained charges, the inconsistent stories, the growing distance between us. I had been so willfully blind, so desperate to believe in the fairy tale I thought we were living. I think you should leave, I told Blake, meeting his eyes without flinching. Samantha, be reasonable. We need to discuss this privately. Every marriage has challenges. We can work through this. His tone had shifted to the one he used to close business deals, confident and persuasive. There's nothing to discuss, I replied. You've been living a double life, Blake. Maybe multiple lives. Our entire marriage is built on lies. That's not true, he insisted. What we have is real. These other relationships, they're meaningless, physical, nothing compared to what I feel for you. I laughed, a hollow sound devoid of humor. And that's supposed to make me feel better? That you betray me meaninglessly? That your affairs are just physical? Blake looked around the table, apparently realizing he was fighting a losing battle. His expression hardened. This is what your family wanted all along. They never thought I was good enough for you. They've been waiting for an opportunity to drive us apart, and now they've manufactured one. They didn't manufacture those photos, Blake. They didn't engrave another woman's initial on my anniversary gift. I stood suddenly, needing physical distance between us. Please leave. I can't look at you right now. Blake rose slowly, straightening his suit jacket with practiced precision. You're upset, understandably. I'll go for now, give you space to process this, but we should talk when you're calmer, without your family's influence. We have 5 years together, Samantha. That's worth fighting for. I said nothing, watching as he gathered his keys and wallet from the table. At the dining room doorway, he paused. I do love you, he said softly. Whatever else you believe, please know that's true. After he left, silence descended on the dining room. I sat motionless, staring at the closed jewelry box, feeling my entire world shift beneath me. I'm sorry, honey, my mother finally said, her voice breaking. We didn't want to hurt you. But we couldn't let you keep living a lie. I nodded absently, still processing the magnitude of Blake's betrayal. How long have you known? We suspected for years, Dad admitted, but we only had proof for about a month. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Ashley reached across the table from my hand. We tried, in our way, but you weren't ready to hear it. We needed something concrete, something you couldn't dismiss. She was right. I would have defended Blake, found excuses for whatever evidence they presented. I had been doing exactly that for years, interpreting red flags as quirks of a demanding career. What happens now? I asked, more to myself than to them. Whatever you want, Mom replied gently. We're here for you no matter what you decide. I looked around their concerned faces, suddenly grateful for their persistence, their refusal to abandon me even when I had pushed them away in favor of a man who had never been worthy of that sacrifice. I need some time, I said finally, to think, to figure out what's real anymore. They nodded in understanding, and for the first time that evening, the silence between us felt comforting rather than oppressive. The next morning, I asked my family for privacy so I could meet with Blake alone. Despite their concerns, they respected my decision, though Ashley made me promise to call her immediately if I needed anything. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop, a neutral location where the conversation wouldn't devolve into either false intimacy or uncontrolled anger. I arrived early, choosing a table in the back corner where we could talk without being overheard. Blake walked in 10 minutes late, impeccably dressed, as always. He had the nerve to bring flowers, a small bouquet of lilies that he placed on the table between us. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, his voice gentle and contrite. "A shock," I repeated flatly. "That's one way to put it." He sighed, running his hair through his hair in a gesture I once found endearing, but now recognized as calculated. "Samantha, I want to explain what your family showed you. It's not the whole story." "Then tell me the whole story, Blake. No more lies." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "The truth is, my job is complicated. The travel, the pressure, the loneliness, it takes a toll. These other relationships, they're just physical outlets, ways to manage stress. They don't mean anything emotionally." "So you've been cheating on me throughout our marriage as a form of stress relief," I clarified, my voice steadier than I expected. "How many women are there, Blake? Total?" He hesitated, clearly calculating the risks of honesty versus continued deception. "There have been several over the years. None lasted long." "Except Madison?" 8 months isn't exactly a brief fling." Blake had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Madison is different. She works in the industry, understands the lifestyle. But what I feel for her isn't love, Samantha. It's convenience." "And that makes it better somehow? That you betray me out of convenience?" "I'm trying to be honest with you," he said, frustration edging into his voice. "Most men in my position would just deny everything." "You did deny everything until the evidence was overwhelming." I took a sip of coffee, buying time to steady my emotions. "The necklace with her initial, that was created when you got caught." Blake shifted in his seat. "I did order one for you. Similar design, different engraving. It should have been delivered to our condo." "So thoughtful," I said sarcastically. "His and hers infidelity jewelry?" "Samantha, please. I made mistakes, serious ones. But our marriage doesn't have to end because of them. We can work through this. Couples therapy, a fresh start. Maybe I could even scale back my travel for a while." I studied his face, this man I had pledged my life to 5 years ago. He was still handsome, still charismatic, but now I could see the calculation behind his expressions, the practiced sincerity in his apologies. Tell me something, Blake. If my family hadn't intercepted that necklace, if they hadn't hired an investigator, would you have ever told me the truth? Would you have ever stopped? His hesitation told me everything I needed to know.
That's what I thought, I said quietly. People make mistakes, Samantha. You can't throw away 5 years because of some bad decisions. This isn't about mistakes. This is about systematic deception. You've been living multiple lives, Blake. You've lied to me every day for years. Not about everything, he insisted. The core of our relationship is real. The life we've built together is real. I laughed bitterly. What life? You're never home. Our conversations are superficial. We haven't really connected in years. What exactly are we saving here? Blake reached for my hand across the table. This time I let him take it, curious if I would feel anything beyond revulsion. His touch, once electric, now left me cold. I love you, he said, looking directly into my eyes. I've always loved you, even when I strayed. None of those women could ever replace you. Please give me one more chance to prove it. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to imagine it, staying with Blake, trying to rebuild what we had, the familiar life, the comfortable routine, the status and security of being his wife. But it would all be built on a foundation of lies, forever tainted by the knowledge that I wasn't enough for him, that I never had been. No, I said gently, withdrawing my hand from his. I won't do that to myself. Samantha, please. I want a divorce, Blake. The words felt strange in my mouth, but undeniably right. I deserve better than what you've given me. I deserve honesty and faithfulness and real love, not whatever this is. His expression shifted, the contrite husband replaced by something harder, more calculating. You're making an emotional decision. You're upset and hurt, that's understandable. But divorce is extreme. Think about what you're giving up. I know exactly what I'm giving up. A marriage that exists in name only, a husband who treats his vows as suggestions rather than promises. And the lifestyle, the condo, the vacations, the financial security, are you prepared to give all that up too? His tone had an edge now, almost threatening. If that's what it costs to keep my self-respect, yes. Blake leaned back, studying me with new eyes. Your family has really gotten to you, haven't they? They never understood our world, our relationship. They've been waiting for an opportunity to turn you against me. My family showed me the truth when you wouldn't. They protected me when you were hurting me. Don't try to make them the villains in this story. And what about the necklace? He asked, abruptly changing tactics. Your sister had no right to take something addressed to you. Actually, I spoke with her this morning. I want you to take it back. Blake blinked, clearly surprised. Take it back? Yes. Return it, sell it, give it to Madison. I don't care. I don't want jewelry bought with guilt money. I don't want anything from you anymore. You're being irrational, he said, his composure slipping. Let's take some time, think this through. Maybe separation instead of jumping straight to divorce. Give us a chance to rebuild trust. I stood, gathering my purse and jacket. There's nothing to rebuild, Blake. Our marriage was a beautiful illusion, but it was never real, not in the ways that matter. Samantha, please, he said, rising as well. We can fix this. I can change. I'm sure you can, I replied sadly, but I don't want to be there to see it. I'll have my lawyer contact yours regarding the divorce proceedings. As I walked away from the table, from Blake, from the life I had built around his lies, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. Something precious had died,
But something else, something genuine, had a chance to grow in its place.
6 months have passed since that fateful anniversary dinner that changed everything. The divorce proceedings were finalized faster than I expected, thanks in part to Blake's desire to avoid public scandal. His company apparently values discretion above all else. The early days were the hardest. Waking up alone in my childhood bedroom, having moved back in with my parents temporarily, explaining the situation to friends and colleagues who had only ever seen the perfect facade of our marriage. Sorting through 5 years of shared possessions, deciding what to keep and what to let go. Blake made one last attempt at reconciliation, showing up at my parents' house with grand promises of therapy, transparency, and change. When I remained firm in my decision, his true colors emerged. He threatened to fight for a larger share of our assets, to drag the divorce out for years if necessary. But when my lawyer produced the photos from the private investigator, he quickly became more accommodating. I received the necklace after all, delivered by courier with a note from Blake that read simply, "I'm sorry for everything." It sat in my drawer for weeks while I decided what to do with it. Selling it felt tainted somehow, as if I would be profiting from his betrayal. Keeping it was unthinkable. In the end, I found a perfect solution. I sold the necklace and donated the entire proceeds to a shelter for women rebuilding their lives after abusive relationships. While my marriage hadn't been physically abusive, the emotional manipulation and betrayal had left similar scars. It felt right to transform something that represented pain into a resource for healing. My relationship with my family has evolved in unexpected ways. Initially, I worried I might resent them for their role in exposing Blake's infidelity, for forcing me to face a truth I had been avoiding for years. Instead, I found myself profoundly grateful for their persistence, their refusal to let me continue living in blissful ignorance. Yet we've established new boundaries. I love them deeply, but I've made it clear that my future relationships will be mine to navigate. They've respected this, offering support without interference as I begin to date again, cautiously and on my own terms. Ashley and I have grown closer than ever. She was my rock during the darkest days, letting me cry, rage, and sometimes even defend Blake as I processed my grief. "You're allowed to miss the person you thought he was," she told me during one particularly difficult night. "That doesn't mean you want him back." Professionally, I've embraced change as well. I left my teaching position for a role coordinating educational programs at a community arts center. The work is challenging and fulfilling, allowing me to combine my love of education with my rediscovered passion for creativity. Blake had subtly discouraged my artistic pursuits, finding them impractical and unprofitable. Now I'm surrounded by people who value expression over impression. Through a support group for divorced women, I've made new friends who understand exactly what I'm going through. Women who recognize the particular pain of rebuilding an identity that was too entangled with a partner's deception. We meet weekly, sharing stories, advice, and sometimes just silent understanding when words aren't enough. It hasn't all been smooth sailing. There are still nights when loneliness feels overwhelming, when I question my decision despite knowing it was right. There are moments when I catch myself wondering what Blake is doing, if he's changed, if any part of what we shared was genuine. These thoughts come less frequently now, but they haven't disappeared entirely. The most profound lesson I've learned through all of this is about trust, both in others and in myself. Blake betrayed my trust repeatedly, but I also betrayed myself by ignoring the signs, by dismissing my intuition in favor of a comfortable lie. I've learned that real love doesn't require constant vigilance or suspicion, but it does demand honesty, even when the truth is painful. I've also learned about boundaries, about the difference between supporting someone and enabling their harmful behavior. My family crossed boundaries in hiring the investigator, but they did so out of genuine concern. Blake crossed boundaries repeatedly while portraying himself as the victim when confronted. The distinction between these motivations matters.
Perhaps most importantly, I've learned that being alone isn't the same as being lonely. In the quiet spaces that used to terrify me, I found strength I never knew I possessed. I've rediscovered parts of myself that got lost in the performance of being the perfect wife to an absent husband. Recently, I went on a solo trip to the mountains, something I would never have done during my marriage. Standing on a summit at sunrise, watching light spill across the valley below, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. Not happiness exactly, but something more sustainable. Contentment with my own company, confidence in my own judgment, comfort in my own skin.
1 year later, as I sit in my own apartment overlooking the city, I can see how much has changed, not just in my circumstances, but in my understanding of myself and what I truly need from life. The apartment is smaller than the condo Blake and I shared, but it's entirely mine. Every piece of furniture, every painting on the wall, every book on the shelf reflects my taste, my values, my authentic self. I've been seeing someone new, a fellow teacher named Michael who I met through the art center. He's nothing like Blake, steady where Blake was unpredictable, present where Blake was absent, honest where Blake was deceptive. When Michael travels for educational conferences, he calls me every evening. When he says he'll be somewhere, he's there. When he makes a promise, he keeps it. These might seem like small things, but they're the foundation of trust that I now realize was always missing from my marriage. Our relationship is different in other ways too. Michael encourages my art, often spending evenings quietly reading while I paint. He's met my family multiple times and genuinely enjoys their company, never making excuses to avoid gatherings or making me feel torn between him and them. He's interested in my thoughts, my dreams, my fears. Our conversations have depth and substance, built on mutual respect rather than one person trying to impress the other. I've learned to recognize the difference between love and infatuation, between partnership and performance. What I had with Blake felt intense because it was unstable. The constant uncertainty, the need to prove myself worthy of his attention, the dramatic highs and devastating lows. I mistook that emotional chaos for passion. Real love, I've discovered, is calmer but deeper. It's knowing someone will be there not just for the exciting moments, but for the mundane Tuesday evenings. It's being able to be yourself completely without fear of judgment or abandonment. The support group has been invaluable in this journey. Hearing other women's stories has helped me understand that I'm not alone in having been deceived, in having ignored red flags, in having to rebuild my life from the ground up. We've celebrated each other's victories, the first successful job interview, the first date after divorce, the first time someone felt truly happy again. We've also supported each other through setbacks, the nights when loneliness crept in, the moments of self-doubt, the temptation to reach out to ex-partners who weren't good for us. One of the women in our group, Sarah, shared something that has stayed with me. We teach people how to treat us, she said. When we accept less than we deserve, we're telling them that's all we're worth. I think about Blake's affairs, his lies, his dismissive attitude toward my feelings and my family. I accepted all of it because I thought that was what love required: sacrifice and understanding and endless second chances. But real love doesn't ask you to diminish yourself. Real love celebrates who you are and helps you become who you want to be. My relationship with my parents has found a new equilibrium. They're proud of the woman I've become, the strength I've shown in leaving Blake and rebuilding my life, but they've also learned to trust my judgment in ways they didn't before. When I introduced them to Michael, they were cautious but respectful. They asked thoughtful questions without being intrusive. They offered their support without trying to control the situation. We've all grown from this experience. Ashley has become not just my sister, but one of my closest friends. She started her own business, a consulting firm that helps small companies with their marketing strategies. Watching her pursue her dreams has inspired me to take risks I never would have considered during my marriage. I'm currently working on a proposal for a new program at the Art Center, one that would combine art therapy with educational outreach for at-risk youth. It's ambitious and uncertain, but I'm no longer afraid of uncertainty the way I used to be. I think about Blake sometimes, though less often than I did in the early days. I heard through mutual friends that he's still working in international finance, still traveling constantly. I don't know if he's changed his behavior or simply gotten better at hiding it. I hope for the sake of whoever he's with now that he's learned something from our divorce, but I know that's not my responsibility anymore. I can't fix him, heal him, or change him. I can only control my own choices and my own growth. The most surprising discovery has been how much I enjoy my own company. During my marriage, I dreaded the evenings when Blake was away. The silence felt oppressive, the empty space beside me in bed a reminder of my loneliness. Now I treasure my quiet evenings, the freedom to read, create, or simply sit with my thoughts. I've learned to distinguish between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is a lack of connection, but being alone can be a choice, a space for reflection and growth and self-care. I've also learned to trust my instincts in ways I never did before. When something feels off, I pay attention rather than explaining it away. When someone's words don't match their actions, I notice rather than making excuses. These skills serve me not just in romantic relationships, but in friendships, professional situations, and family dynamics. I'm more discerning about who I let into my life and what behavior I'm willing to accept. As I bring this story to a close, I want to share the most important lessons I've learned from this experience. First, trust is not just about believing what someone tells you. It's about observing whether their actions align with their words over time. Blake was charming and convincing, but his behavior told a different story than his promises. I learned to pay attention to patterns rather than explanations. Second, a healthy relationship should enhance your life, not diminish it. During my marriage, I found myself becoming smaller, quieter, less connected to the people and activities that brought me joy. I told myself this was maturity, compromise, growth. But real partnership should help you become more yourself, not less. Michael encourages my friendships with my family, supports my career ambitions, and celebrates my independence. This is what love should look like. Third, red flags are information, not challenges to overcome. When Ashley pointed out inconsistencies in Blake's stories, when my parents expressed concerns about his behavior, when my own intuition told me something was wrong, I saw these as obstacles to my happiness rather than warnings to heed. I thought love meant believing the best about someone despite evidence to the contrary. But love also means protecting yourself from harm, even when that harm comes from someone you care about. The financial aspects of my divorce were challenging, but manageable. I had to downsize my lifestyle significantly, trading the luxury condo for a modest apartment, expensive dinners for home-cooked meals, designer clothes for thrift store finds. But I discovered something surprising in this process. The happiness I thought came from material things was actually coming from the security of partnership, even the flawed one. Once I found genuine security within myself and built authentic relationships with people who truly cared about me, the material losses became irrelevant. I want to address something for anyone watching who might be in a similar situation. Leaving a marriage, especially one that looks good from the outside, is terrifying. The fear of being alone, of financial instability, of judgment from others, of admitting you made a mistake can feel overwhelming. I understand the temptation to stay, to hope things will change, to accept less than you deserve because it feels safer than the unknown. But I want you to know that the unknown, while scary, holds possibilities that staying in a harmful situation never will. If you're seeing red flags in your relationship, Trust yourself. If your family and friends are expressing concerns, listen to them. If you find yourself making excuses for your partner's behavior or feeling like you have to hide parts of your relationship from people you trust, pay attention to what that might mean. You deserve honesty, respect, and genuine love. You deserve a partner who shows up, not just physically, but emotionally. You deserve someone who enhances your life rather than complicating it. The healing process isn't linear. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, nights when you question your decisions. But there will also be mornings when you wake up excited about your day, evenings when you feel grateful for your life, moments when you realize how much stronger you've become. The pain of betrayal is real and significant, but it doesn't have to define your future. 2 years after that anniversary dinner that changed everything, I'm happier than I've been in years. Not because my life is perfect, but because it's authentic. I'm surrounded by people who know me completely and love me anyway. I'm pursuing work that fulfills me rather than just pays bills. I'm in a relationship built on mutual respect and genuine partnership. I've learned to value peace over excitement, consistency over grand gestures, and truth over comfortable lies. If you're watching this and something in my story resonates with you, please know that you're not alone. There are people who will support you through whatever changes you need to make. There are resources available to help you rebuild. There is life and joy and love waiting on the other side of whatever difficult situation you might be facing. Trust your instincts when they tell you something isn't right. Surround yourself with people who want the best for you, even when that means telling you difficult truths. And remember that your worth isn't determined by anyone else's ability to recognize it or treat you accordingly. Have you ever ignored red flags in a relationship? What helped you finally see the truth? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and growth. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. The courage to leave what's wrong opens the door to finding what's right. You deserve nothing less than authentic love and genuine happiness.